Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to today's webinar, which is Save While Electrifying Your Work Truck Fleet in a three-way partnership between Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Act News, and Ford Pro. My name is Tim O'Neill. I'm an onboarding specialist with PG&E's EV Fleet program. I'll be hosting today the webinar as we learn how you can your fleets can save money while installing EV charging infrastructure and powering electric work trucks. As a bonus, during this 1-hour session, we'll also discuss Ford Pro's strategy for supporting service and maintenance for their fleet customers through an expanded EV certified dealership network, which you guys are all very familiar with when you see the Ford logos all around the cities you drive. I think we're going to also have some discussion around their current, the future of their electric work trucks in the van lineups. We're going to have Joel talking about that. All right. Let's go ahead and get on into this. Let's see, we've got, I think we're going to do speaker lineup. Some of you may know, I've been on some of these and know me already, but we're very fortunate to have Joel with us. So let's see, we're going to go over, we'll be hearing from Joel Torr, who's a head of business development for charging with Ford Pro. He'll be discussing how Ford is leading the way in the sales of electric work trucks, as well as some general information about quickly growing future of the electric vehicle market. After Joel finishes up, I'll do a quick review of PG&E's EV fleet program and discuss some of the assistance that we can offer customers when they're putting into service some of the medium and heavy duty fleet vehicles. Okay, let's get this started. And with that, Joel, you're up.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. So just want to start out, first of all, thanks everyone for taking time out of your afternoon, wherever you're joining from. Joel Torr, head of business development for Ford Pro Charging. So we're a dedicated business unit within Ford Pro focused on fleet electrification and helping to tackle infrastructure challenges for our customers in the commercial and government fleet space. So I kind of want to throw out a bit of an existential question here. Where is your company in your EV transition journey? You might know the answer to that straight away. Oh, we've got this figured out. We're buying vehicles left and right. Charging infrastructure is easy. We've been at this for years. Or you're looking at this going, well, we never thought about an EV transition journey. We figured, we'll just buy some trucks, try them out, figure out where we can get chargers. Hopefully we get permitting and find a local electrician who's looking for work, and we'll get running. But that's really not what I want to get folks thinking about in the presentation here. I want you to think about, are you considering charging infrastructure from the get-go, right? Before you're getting excited about the vehicles, and I'll touch on vehicles in a second, but truly appreciating, kind of the start to finish and the scaling aspect of that journey is really critical. We've had lots of customers that we've been working with for a couple of years now, where we take that crawl, walk, run approach. And so I'll look to just continue this line of conversation and questioning in the chat as we get into Q&A later. But enough about the existential questions. We love talking about vehicles. I told Tim and the folks at G&A, well, I'm the charging guy. I'll talk about vehicles just enough to be dangerous. And of course, I drive an F-150 Lightning, beat it up, tow, haul, you name it. That's just the way I'd like to treat my trucks. But that's only one part of our electrified lineup. Many folks are probably familiar with the van in the middle there. That's the E-Transit with a nominal range of about 126 miles. Ford did a remarkable amount of research, just like we do with all of our products, making sure they're the right tool for the job. And what we discovered was a large number of fleets really only travel about 100 miles in daily service. And I think we'll continue to talk about range. But the way we think about range in the charging business is range is a function of charging. When you charge, at what rate you charge, whether it's at home, at a depot, or on the go at the Blue Oval Charge Network, that really reframes the way we think about buying the right tool for the job and buying a vehicle that has an appropriate amount of range. So a couple different battery configurations available for the F-150. Between the standard range and the extended range, you can get anywhere from 230 to 320 miles out of a single charge. And then with the E-Transit and the Mach-E, again, different size batteries for different size duty cycles. The Mach-E is a phenomenal vehicle. We see that used a lot in take-home fleets, sales fleets, also in police service. I think that's one of the more interesting applications that I've been involved with, where the vehicles are not only being used for fleet service, but also for actual patrol duty, which I think is really neat when you think about service vehicles that are sitting out idling throughout the day in many police forces, being able to reduce the amount of idle time as an added benefit to the fuel savings and the cost savings and maintenance. But across the lineup, there are a lot of different configurations. Within the e-Transit, we offer a standard roof configuration, high roof, long wheelbase, and chassis cab. Chassis cab, again, if I got to pick favorite configurations, chassis cab is really interesting because we work with our network of upfitters to turn the van into the right tool for the job. So whether it becomes a box truck carrying groceries or a service vehicle carrying specific tooling for a vocation like plumbing or electrician work, it can really become a more dynamic, flexible platform than just a van that looks like the Amazon van that delivers packages in our neighborhoods. But back to some of these questions. How comfortable do you feel with charging? Again, you might think, well, it's just an appliance, right? I just need to get chargers in the ground so I can charge these vehicles that we're considering, or we're going to pilot, or we're going to really start procuring in mass as part of our electrification journey. But the comfort level I'm thinking of is related to all the work that needs to get done, not just the kind of end result of putting the charger in the ground and charging the vehicle the first time, but all the pre-work that goes into it. And one of the things that we've seen just in our experience at Ford, but I think in the collection of folks that work in the commercial space at Ford Pro, we've seen this for years and years and years. That vehicles are really only as good as the charging solution, and the fueling solution, right? The charging solution now becomes that much more important because traditionally vehicles are fueled at a gas station, or for some larger fleets, a fueling depot if purchased fuel was on site. Now there's a lot more flexibility, which means you want to take a bit more time to plan and deploy and operate. Again, going back to the operating costs of your current fleet and how we reduce the total cost of ownership. Getting it wrong can actually have a negative impact if you're going back later and pulling chargers out of the ground because perhaps it wasn't the right charger, or the infrastructure, right, the copper and conduit that was buried didn't provide that kind of future expansion to allow the charging infrastructure to grow over time. So we preach quite often. I stand on a pulpit every single day talking about utility company coordination. So this speaks to Tim and the organization at Pacific Gas and Electric. Get those conversations started soon and have them often. I cannot underscore that point enough. Whether you're in California or in the Southeast and South Carolina like me, you're going to want to be talking to your utility company quickly, and again, have frequent, regular conversations. Infrastructure changes the way you're set up at your facility. There may be other things involved. It's, again, not just as straightforward as putting the charging infrastructure in the ground, but making sure you're considering that with the rest of your business. When we get involved as Ford Pro, not only do we want to get the infrastructure going so vehicles can get delivered, but we want to be as minimally disruptive as possible. Our scenario, our nightmare scenario is really when, one, vehicles arrive without a fully baked charging solution, and two, we're disrupting service, right? This should certainly be a seamless transition. If we plan it right, we kind of start at the right point in that journey. And that really results in a fully functional depot. So we get the chargers going, we get the software configured, now vehicles arrive, and we're charging. There's three aspects that we want to consider here. Depot, I think, being applicable to many fleets, but certainly not all, especially take-home fleets that may be reliant on individual drivers wanting to electrify, right? I think you certainly are going to want drivers that are willing and interested in trying something new. Obviously, from my perspective, driving an electric vehicle for many years and driving an F-150 Lightning now, I'm biased. I think it's a better tool for the job, for the use that I put it through. But in a take-home application, you're kind of putting the burden of fueling on the individual driver. And so we want to make it clear to our fleet customers that we provide one place to track fleet and charging data. So it doesn't always have to be this depot application. You can provide peace of mind back to the driver that they'll get reimbursed for the energy that they use to charge their vehicle. So quite literally, when I charge my truck, e-telematics, the telematics that's built into every one of our vehicles we produce now, and the e-telematics just refers to the fact that it's on an electric vehicle, that actually tracks the charging usage during my work hours. So if I'm driving to meet a customer or head out and do some work with Duke Energy, and it's charging for work, then I'm actually going to get reimbursed back for that energy that I used for charging. Not on the weekend. Weekend's my time, but during the week, I think that's really important as we consider how these vehicles are going to scale. And then with public, the largest public network with centralized billing, it really plays into that e-telematics benefit with having connected vehicles. So again, if I'm on a long road trip, say I'm driving down to Atlanta, I'm going to hit some of the DC chargers that are part of the Blue Oval Charge network. Those charges all show up in my Ford Fleet Marketplace account, and then I'm able to actually get reimbursed easily, right? Because all my charges are tracked and managed in one central location. Just touching on some of the benefits of depot charging. We want to remain very flexible because charging hardware will continue to evolve. So y'all probably saw the announcement about a month ago or so about NACS. You will continue to make sure we offer the latest and greatest charging solution, making sure that we flex with standards, right? We flex and grow with our customers. So that's really important to our offer. The stranded asset is not good in a fleet application. So we will continue to make sure we offer the latest and greatest charging hardware. We want to be able to manage charging operations to optimize energy costs. I think one of the added benefits to running an electric fleet is the fact that charging costs are variable. So you could see that as a detriment. I actually see it as a benefit because traditionally your purchase fuel costs are going to be the same. It doesn't really matter if you charge off peak, the prices are what they are. But charging off peak in an electric world provides a cost savings potential. And then there are future energy services that are available with certain utilities through things like demand response programs that allow for further increased cost savings, which again you don't get with gas, right? If you avoid fueling with a gas vehicle at a certain time of the day, I mean, it just doesn't benefit you in any way. It's just not how that infrastructure was set up. And having the control to do that in one platform that can integrate into your fleet operations, I think is key, especially when we start talking about data services, APIs, the ability to just package up all that charging data and then funnel it into existing fleet management software. It's really key. And then we, of course, want to try and provide as many of these services under one roof. And that was an important part of how we launched the business at Ford Pro. I won't spend too much time talking about rebates, incentives, although I think they are very important and very valuable, literally. I think Tim is going to hit on those in a bit. There are a number of federal, state, local incentives, especially working with your local utility. My recommendation, apply for everything. It's kind of like playing the lottery. You never know. But if you put in a compelling application, a competitive application, that's your best chance at getting approved for the funding. And the funding levels continue to increase. I mentioned some folks at Ford, myself included, that have been at this fleet electrification for the better part of 20 years actually, and the incentives are remarkable, just in terms of how much the feds and the states and utilities continue to push for fleet electrification. It's kind of like leaving money on the table if you're not applying for anything, including tax rebates. And so there's a little blurb. We'll send this out afterwards. I know we're going to share this information, but there are some tax advisory services offered through Ford, through your local dealership. And there's some good information available at fordpro.com as well. So we'll share some of that information. I'll probably drop a link in the chat. And then we'll also, again, like I said, have this deck available afterwards. Software seems pretty straightforward, but might be kind of foreign when it comes to fueling a fleet. Unless you're really running a larger operation and managing your fuel, this may seem completely out of the blue, right? Why do I need software to charge my trucks, my vans, my cars? The idea here is, we want to track that usage, like I mentioned before, centralize all the data into our platform, and then manage costs, right? Keep costs under control due to the variable nature of energy. So a really neat opportunity for fleets. And obviously Ford, as a big OEM, we want to continue to push the envelope of what's possible, working with our utilities that we are involved with, right? Because many utilities, PG&E included, run our vehicles. And so we get a lot of insights back from utilities and fleets like folks on the call here, into how the vehicles are being used, when they're being charged. So this data, not just important for fleet customers, but also important for Ford to continue to develop better products over time, because we are a customer-centric organization. And really all those insights come from data like this. Home charging, like I mentioned, we've got a program for reimbursement and tools that make that very repeatable, very secure, because we are putting a connected vehicle in a driver's home. So cybersecurity is of the utmost at Ford. I was just joking with one of the folks in my team before I joined the call that my Mac had updated, and I couldn't even get into PowerPoint to set up the presentation for today, because we're constantly updating and staying on the forefront, internal to Ford Motor Company, but also external to our customers, to kind of stay on the forefront of cybersecurity. I think the cybersecurity team is, kind of this big skunkworks organization within Ford, continuing to make sure that, the services we provide to our customers are safe and secure. We offer up to a 5-year warranty, which is nice too, offering that peace of mind. Fleets can extend the warranty offer, which includes parts and labor, which is pretty slick. Last thing we want is downtime for a fleet, so we can dispatch a service vehicle to an individual driver's home and get that charger repaired or replaced, so the vehicle's up and running. And then the BlueOval Charge Network. So what is the BlueOval Charge Network? Really, it's the result of years of hard work within Ford, leading up to the launch and the release of the Mach-E. But it's a combination of a number of networks across the US and Canada that make up about 84,000 charge ports and growing, with over 10,000 DC fast chargers. And again, you saw kind of the recent announcement related to the BlueOval Charge Network, and the announcement that we'll be adopting the NACS standard, or what is becoming potentially a standard for charging in future vehicle releases. And so that will allow the footprint to almost double by next spring, which also includes DC chargers that are rolling out across the country at our Model E certified and certified elite dealerships. So it'll be really interesting. In roughly 9 months or so, next spring, our DC charging footprint is almost going to double for our customer base, which is pretty awesome. Again, when you consider fleets and making the decision when and at what rate to electrify, the doubling of the DC charger footprint certainly removes a lot of the impediments, in my opinion, to having that charging infrastructure in the ground. And again, being able to navigate to those chargers in real time to see not only if they're online, right? Because we've all heard some of the early DC chargers, some of the DC chargers that are out there aren't the most reliable, but also that they're occupied. So you don't just end up driving out to the middle of nowhere and finding a stranded asset. We want to make sure that fleets keep running in their daily duty cycle. And in order to make that even more actionable, so we're not just relying on customers discovering chargers when we have issues, we actually developed this group called Charge Angels. So it's basically a team of dedicated technicians that are deployed across the US to continuously evaluate the integrity of that network as it continues to grow and evolve. So as it gets bigger, as there are more vehicle EVs on the road, the likelihood of issues coming up due to wear and tear, due to damage and theft, the likelihood is much higher. So Ford Charge Angels are out there continuously charging, right? And making sure that, these chargers are up and running, doing what they can to provide feedback to the different charging operators that make up that Louisville Charge network. There's another kind of update I want to throw in here for those that are probably pretty familiar with Ford Pro, maybe haven't seen something new and interesting in a bit. Although if you were paying attention yesterday, you likely saw the announcement that the F-150 Lightning pricing has decreased. So this may not seem as interesting as the price decrease of the Lightning, because that kind of stole the show, especially in the EV space yesterday. But this is really important. So what we did was we developed a tool in-house along with our other software suite called eSwitch Assist. And really what the tool is meant to do is analyze your EV readiness. So looking at actual vehicles, actual data, from real world use and application, to help provide a very detailed report and specific insights into what vehicles should be electrified. So moving beyond, pitch decks like this and good salesmanship, that we've got the Lightning and the Mach-E and the E-Transit and these great vehicles, but we want to make it very specific. So through eSwitch Assist, we'll kind of carve out a section of your fleet that based on, use pattern, right, duty cycle, those would be the vehicles to electrify first. And the way I like to think about it is not just cost savings, but you're kind of leaving money on the table, especially as EV infrastructure becomes more robust for all the reasons I mentioned, and as battery electric vehicle costs come down, which again was really exciting yesterday to see the price reduction of the F-150 Lightning across all trim levels too, I should mention there. So up to almost $10,000, depending on the specific trim and configuration of the Lightning, which is pretty significant. And we do have a URL, which again, I'll try and drop this in the chat. But this is a way to get in contact with us, with our consulting team that sits in-house within Ford Pro, that will work with you and your fleet manager to connect to the vehicles, get as much vehicle data as we can in order to run the analysis to answer some of these questions, right? Why not try a small number of units? Have you considered electrifying one site to then create kind of a templated approach, which is something that I do recommend doing quite often when we do design build projects. If we can do design build at one site and then repeat that at multiple sites, that certainly reduces some of the engineering costs up front to get designs permitted and built. And then it's definitely going to be cheaper and easier to electrify depots now, not in 2030, because of the rebates and incentives that are available. So taking advantage of that is certainly beneficial. And what we've seen time and time again is that operating EVs can be more cost effective than diesel, and then many times in gasoline as well. So just to kind of round things out, a good journey through electrification really starts with that plan. And it kind of gets this flywheel kicked off where we all get excited about the vehicles. You know, I had my reservation in for the Lightning just like everyone else. I paid more then than I would have now because the costs have come down. But that was a decision that made sense for me based on my usage of the vehicle. And I see the same thing with our fleets every single day when we get involved in fleet analytics using tools like eSwitch Assist, doing total cost of ownership calculations. Being able to come up with a comprehensive design build plan is key. Influencing where you electrify first. Some companies are all in on home. Some companies don't want to put the burden on the individual drivers, so they'll go all in on depot and then roll out home charging over time. The reality is there's really no right answer. There's just an answer that's really specific to your organization based on your your company's policies and how you want to approach drivers and driver fueling, right? Charging at home. And then taking advantage of the software and operations. And financing, lastly, something that I think folks are familiar with, which is complementary to a lot of the rebates and incentives that you can apply for. But Ford Motor Credit developed a product and an entire business unit called FinSimple that are really focused on financing for fleets, not just the vehicles, but charging infrastructure as well as service. So we can really wrap all of our services and costs into a affordable plan, again, based on the needs of the specific fleet. So I know it's a lot to cover. We'll be digging into the Q&A, but that is it for me, and I will hand it back over to you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. So as I move into my transitions or my slides, I do want to ask, when I think of, somebody says, oh, Ford electric vehicles, I mean, I'm normally thinking, oh, okay, I'm thinking the vehicles. And this might have been a pretty big eye opener for most of the folks on this call, just understanding just how much Ford is putting out to the vehicles putting out to the customers to support these vehicles through, incentives, planning, financing, I mean, all of it. So really great to hear, Joel. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to go right into my slides. Since Joel mentioned so much about the the infrastructure side that Ford is offering here in California, and I think most of you on this call are in California. We have a program within PG&E called EV Fleet. So I'm going to get right into covering that. So first of all, about 3.5 years ago, the California Public Utilities Commission came to PG&E and asked PG&E to take this $236 million and go help customers install charging infrastructure when they put into service medium and heavy duty electric vehicles. The program is running from 2020 through the end of 2024, so you still have time to submit your applications. The program is still open. We're going to partner with 700 customer sites, getting about 6,500 new or converted medium and heavy duty EVs on the road. This slide really sort of outlines the types of vehicles that qualify for the program. On the top part of the pie are all of the highway vehicles or the on-road vehicles, and that's anything from Class 2 all the way up through Class 8. The big thing to remember on this slide is the vehicles have to be over 6,000 pound gross vehicle weight. So since we're partnering with Ford, I'll tell you the Ford F-150, the Lightning is over 6,000 pound, the E-Transit van is over 6,000 pound gross vehicle weight, qualifies for the program. Unfortunately, the Mach-E does not, but the other two do. So this is a great program for your fleets and for when you're putting into the service those vehicles. Everything on the bottom part of the pie is the off-road or the non-highway vehicles, because this program also supports truck stops and ports and airports and that sort of thing. And then of course on the light blue, you see that we also have operations for converting or installing electric forklifts. So this program will support all of those types of vehicles. Now, let's talk about how the infrastructure is broken out, because a lot of times customers are unsure of who does what, who handles what, who builds what. So let's cover that. So when PG&E looks at your charging infrastructure, we break it into 3 sections. The first section on the left in the green is called TTM. That stands for to the meter. Now, this includes the distribution line running down in front of the street, your service drop, transformer sitting on your property. And then TTM includes the trenching, conduit, and conductor from the transformer over to your new meter panel serving your charging stations. You're gonna hear me say that a couple times, new meter panel. But understand that the TTM is all PG&E. We own it, we operate it, we pay for it, we install it, we maintain it, everything. The second part of the charging infrastructure there in blue is called BTM, stands for behind the meter. Now, this is the customer's responsibility. This includes the customer's new meter panel, plus any breakers and switchgear. And then BTM includes the trenching, conduit, and conductor from the meter panel over to the base of your charging stations. Now, BTM, as I mentioned, is the customer's responsibility. You're gonna hire a contractor to install this. You're gonna pay for it. You're going to maintain it. You're gonna own it, which there's a good part of this. There's a good reason to own and maintain all of this BTM. Now, the third part of the charging infrastructure is, of course, orange there itself is the charging station. And that too is the customer's responsibility to purchase and install. You'll own it, you'll operate it, you'll maintain it. And we're gonna cover some benefits to having that as well. So let's talk about the good news. Let's talk about how PG&E breaks up that $236 million. So as I mentioned, the TTM, PG&E does everything. Now, normally if a customer asks a utility or PG&E to upgrade their transformer or do some trenching on site or whatever, PG&E normally charges customers to do that work. But under the EV fleet program, we cover all of those costs free of charge to a customer. That's a significant benefit. That's anywhere from 100 grand to $300,000-$400,000 worth of savings to a customer. So that's a significant savings. The second part, BTM, as I mentioned, customer's responsibility. You're going to hire your contractor to install this, but we're going to pay you as part of the EV fleet program a BTM incentive. Now, the BTM incentive is calculated using the box in the lower right-hand corner. So let's take an example, and let's say you said, hey, Tim, at this one yard, I'm going to put into service we'll say two E-Transit vans every year for the next 5 years, for a total of E-Transit vans, because we do your 5-year experience. We do what you're going to put into service through the end of 2027. That's important because we don't want you to have to come back in a couple of years and retrench and re-upgrade and redo that. So we're allowed under this program to do your 5-year plan, design and build that. So let's say you said, Tim, I'm going to put into service two 40 E-Transit vans every year for the next 5 years for a total of 10 E-Transit vans. If you look at the list, any of the E-Transit vans fall into this $4,000 per vehicle category. Forklifts, you get $3,000 credit apiece. Class 8 trucks and transit, you get $9,000 credit. So let's drop back down to my 10 E-Transit vans that you said you're going to put into service, and you want 10 charging stations to support. Well, you get $4,000 credit apiece for each of them, times 10 vehicles over your 5-year period. 10 times 4,000 is 40,000. We would pay you a BTM incentive check of $40,000 to help you pay your contractor to set this, we'll just say an 800 amp meter panel and trench over to those 10 charging stations. So that's how the BTM incentive works. That's how you calculate it. So the third and final part of the charging infrastructure, as I said, is the charging station itself. Some customers will qualify for a charger rebate in addition to all the BTM incentives, in addition to all the free TTM. So the way the charger rebate is, as long as you're not a Fortune 1000 customer, Fortune 1000, you're exempt from the charger rebate. But if you're not a Fortune 1000, any school or transit agency automatically qualifies for the rebate. No matter where they're at in our service territory, they get the charger rebate. But for anybody else, let's say that you're delivering pies and you've got this delivery truck, you're doing them out of your E-Transit van, and in doing that, you're not a school or a transit agency. Then it comes down to the fact that, are you inside of a disadvantaged community in California? State of California has a map, and we simply look it up for you and we see, are you inside of a DAC, disadvantaged community, or not? If you are, and you're not a Fortune 1000, then you qualify for the charger rebate. You have to use a charger off of the approved charger list. I'm going to share with you guys the links to that list right towards the end of this here. But as long as you're using the approved charger list, don't worry about that. It's all the main chargers are on there. You shouldn't have any problem with that. And you're inside of a disadvantaged community, then you qualify for the charger rebate also. So the charger rebate, if you qualify for it, well, I guess even if you don't qualify, the charger rebate is actually will pay for 50% your purchase price of the charging station. It doesn't include installation or delivery, but it does pay for 50% of your charging stations. Now, the only limits you're going to see is these up here in the upper right-hand corner for your chargers that are up to 50 kW in size. we'll pay up to a $15,000 rebate. That's 50% or up to $15,000. The other two sizes you see, we max them out $25,000 and $42,000 for the larger charger sizes that would be installing. And one other thing I did forget to point out on the BTM incentive is we'll limit that at 25 vehicles per site. So if you say, well, Tim, I want to install 50 chargers for 50 Ford F-150 Lightnings at the site, you can, and we'll support it in the design and everything else, and you can do your chargers, but we'll cap the BTM incentive at the first 25 vehicles. So instead of 50 times 4,000 being $200,000, we will cap your BTM incentive at 25 vehicles times 4,000 for $100,000 rebate cap or BTM incentive cap. Okay, so that's enough about the layout. Hopefully you all have a good understanding of what we refer to nomenclature-wise, who does what the customer installs, what we install, what we pay for, what you pay for, what incentives, that sort of thing. Let's talk about real quickly how to prepare for this. So understand, what do we need from customers when they're in the program? Number one, upper left, is every customer has to do a minimum of 2 vehicles over their 5-year period. We can't take one vehicle projects. It just doesn't work out financially for the program and for all of you. So it doesn't work. So that's the first. Upper right, we ask that you demonstrate your long-term plan. Very simply, this is what we call your vehicle deployment schedule. It's very simple. It's 5 lines of data, one for each year, in this case, 2023, 24, 25, 26, 27. Each line is going to have 2 pieces of information, one on vehicles, one on chargers. Example, 2023, 1 medium-duty e-transit van and 1 24 kW charge point, blah, blah, blah charger. 2024, 2 Ford F-150 Lightnings, medium-duty truck, and 2 ABB 19.2 kW charger, blah, 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 and so on. And it goes on from there. So that's your 5-year plan. You have to nail that down, because we can't design your system until you tell us how many chargers you're going to install each year to support the vehicles that you're putting into service. Bottom right, we ask that customers own or lease the property where the charger is going to be installed for obvious reasons, and that you agree to operate and maintain the vehicles and chargers for a minimum of 10 years. Remember, this pot of money comes from the state of California's vehicle emissions reductions money. So they're saying, hey, if we're going to dump $250,000 into this customer's project, we're going to want to see those emissions continually being reduced for those 10 years. So that's why that's important, but not a big deal. Once you go electric, you're probably not going to be going back to internal combustion engine anyways. Lower left, nothing you have to do, but we will be reporting your charger usage data back to the CPUC for a minimum of 5 years. Again, they're saying, hey, PG&E, if we're going to dump $250,000 into XYZ's company's business, please let us know that those chargers are being used. So that's just something that we'll do. We'll take care of it for you. What does the customer look like when they're ready to apply? First of all, understand that we cannot receive an application from just anybody. These are customers that need to be ready to move. They're ready to go. They usually either have already received an approved vehicle grant from the Air District or state or something like that, or they've already got a hold of their Ford dealership and they've ordered their first Ford F-150 Lightning and they've got the purchase order. And if you send us that purchase order saying, yep, I've ordered my first one, truck's going to get here in 10 months or 11 or 12 months, I'm ready to go. At that point, we can now receive your application. We can start working and getting your design going. Now that you have that golden ticket, now you're ready to submit your application. There's a few things you have to make up your mind on. You have to make final decisions on. Number 2 and 3 is you have to have that vehicle deployment schedule that I just talked about. You need to tell us how many vehicles each year you're going to put into service through the end of 2027. You need to tell us which chargers off of the approved charger list that you're going to install to support those vehicles, so we know how to design your system, size your transformer, that sort of thing. Number 4, you got to have a map of your charger locations. Now, normally when you get a hold of an onboarding specialist, we walk you through an intro call and we create a map for you. But if we don't, you need to simply create a map, take a Google image of your yard, show us, just put some dots where you want to put your charging stations. So we have an idea of where you're at, and the engineering firm kind of gives them a head start of really what you're looking at for your project. Number 5, you need to secure some out-of-pocket costs, some funding for this. You're going to need to pay a contractor to do the work. You're going to need to buy your charging stations. You're going to need to do all this. Good news is, with the EV fleet program, you can stack our program right on top of any incentive grants that you might get through the state or Air District. So you can stack that. Many customers that I know of are almost 100% paid for their entire project. So as you heard Joel say before, you should be looking doing this now, because there's a lot of grants available, not only for the vehicles, but for the infrastructure. And if you wait too long, those are going to go away and you're going to have to pay for all that on your own dime. Number 6, you got to have all decision makers on board from the beginning. We don't want to go through this, spend a couple months, a lot of person hours and getting funding in there. We get you a design, it works great. Here's your contract. You send it to a CFO and they go, nah, we don't want to do any of this, and we just waste a lot of your time and ours. So have to have everybody on board from the beginning. Number 7, if you don't own the property, you're leasing the property, you need to get the property owners involved early, because they may have to give us an easement for this new equipment that we're installing. Again, we don't want to go through all of this, spend a couple months, and then it goes to a landlord and they say, no, I'm not going to give anybody an easement, and we have to scrap the whole thing and waste a lot of your time. So we'll get everybody involved off of that. So this is the final slide in the EV Fleet program. And then I have 2 quick bonus items for you, and then we're going to get onto our live Q&A session. But I want to make sure you understood the steps and the timing that you're going to go through. Joel pointed out a little bit of this on your timing in some of his slides that he showed. So I'm going to just show you from the California side and the PG&E side what we're looking at. First of all, for the EV Fleet program, there are 2 phases to the program. On the left is the first phase, called preliminary design phase. Realistically, it takes about 3 to 5 months to get through. Your onboarding specialist, such as me, would be your primary contact. Number 1, you do everything we just talked about and you submit that online application. Only takes about 10 minutes, 15 questions, pretty quick to do. Once you do that, we hire an engineering design firm. We pay for them, you don't. And we take that engineering design firm, we assign them to your project. They do what's called a desktop review. It takes about 30 days. Once they do that, they're going to be looking at your charging load back to the substation. Do we have enough capacity? And I saw some online questions coming in about capacity, so we'll address those later. But they look at all that. We make sure we have enough, and we can serve you, we can take care of everything. After that 30 days, they're going to call you, the customer, and they're going to say, hey, we've finished your desktop review. We're ready to do your phone screening and set up your site walk so we can come out. Then they'll do the site walk. They'll come out, and they'll walk the site down. They'll ask you, hey, let's confirm you want this many charging stations. You want them right over there. They'll do some looking at your on-site transformer, open it up, make sure we have enough room to bring in the additional conduit for your new meter panel. And then they're going to go back to the office. They'll work for about another 30 days. And when they're done, they'll submit the design back to PG&E. Once PG&E has it, we'll go ahead and see if it matches for our cost thresholds and design criteria. Once it's good to go, we can approve it. We'll put your contract together and send it to you. Once you sign your contract, send it back to us. We'll countersign it, get it back to you. Then we move you to the other side of this orange line. You're now in the second phase, called final design and execution. This is when all the construction happens. Realistically, it takes about 6 to 8 months to get through. First thing we do is we assign you a PG&E construction project manager. They will be your primary contact moving forward. They'll check with your contractor who's going to be installing your BTM and your charging stations. They're going to make sure that they understand what size meter panel that needs to be set, where exactly it needs to go, because that's where PG&E is bringing the power to. And then your BTM contractor is going to go off and they're going to start doing their work for you. They're going to start pulling permits, ordering materials, scheduling crews. At the same time, our construction PM is going to be doing the same thing on our side. Oh, we need to upgrade the transformer. Let's get it ordered. Let's get that ready to go, and all of that stuff. Hopefully in 6 months, all of your BTM construction is done by your contractor. PG&E will then finish up our work and energize your new meter panel, serving your charging stations. At that time, you're going to energize your chargers. You might do a communications test or something like that. Then you're going to start charging up and operating those E-Transit vans and Ford F-150 Lightnings. You're going to be fantastic. After that, you guys will submit back to PG&E's construction PM any paid invoices, so we can pay you those incentives and rebates that we committed to paying you back inside the contract. The big thing I want to point out here is 3 to 5 months for the first phase, 6 to 8 months for the second phase, 9 to 13 months between when you submit your online application and when we have energized charging stations. So we don't want to wait too long. As far as when you have your grant or when you've ordered that first vehicle, shoot it to us and let us get going on your design. Make those final decisions about your 5-year plan, which chargers you're going to use, and we go from there. So that is the end of the EV Fleet part of the presentation. I have 2 very quick bonus items for you. The first one is, know that PG&E has a business electric vehicle charging rate. You're going to want to get on this rate for the amount of electricity going through these vehicles. The average customer receives about a 15% about a 25% discount on the price they pay under this rate compared to what they would pay on the regular commercial rate at your facility right now. So 25% savings on the amount of power, and the amount of electricity going in these vehicles can be a lot. So it's a big savings. The one requirement to get onto this rate is this right here. your charging stations need to be on a separate PG&E meter than the rest of the facility. You can't put them on your existing meter service or you won't be able to take advantage of the rate. Most customers don't have enough capacity on their existing service anyways, but that's the important thing about the business EV rate. And that's why we tell you, we want to help you install a new meter service, not going onto your existing service for your charging stations that are going to be going into here. So that's the first bonus item. The second one I have, I normally go through this, but due to time constraints, and I want to get into the Q&A, I'm not going to cover this whole thing. I'm just going to take maybe 30 seconds and show you that PG&E has put together a tool. It's at fleets.pg.com. I'm going to send you guys the link. You're going to get that in that follow-up email that the G&A is going to send out for us. But understand that when you go here, there's some really great tools up here. First drop down has a nice planning tool, help you identify, is this even going to work for me? Is fleet electrification, is this going to be effective for me? Am I going to save money? Then there's one on identifying what grants that you qualify for here in California. Put in your zip code, type of business. It'll pop up all the state, federal, and air district grants that you qualify for. And that's a great thing. You heard Joel say, put in for all the grants, as you should. Put in for them, and you see how much you can get. There's a vehicles catalog in there. Just you can say, hey, I want to know which box truck can go 200 miles on a single charge. Put that in the filters, and it will tell you which ones can do that. The real power is in these calculators on the right-hand side. There's a fuel savings calculator, total cost of ownership. There's a business EV rate calculator, that business EV rate I just talked about, rate comparator tool, and one on low carbon fuel standard credits. I'm not going to go through all this. Just understand that as you're going through these, you can decide, I want to put my pickup truck. I've got 2 Ford F-150s. Select that. Select 2. Tell us how many miles on average that they drive, how many days per week. Size of your charger. When you charge, you hit save. You slide this bar up or down, telling us how much you currently pay for a gallon of diesel or fuel. And this tool will actually calculate the fuel savings. In this case, this one Class 8 truck, if we convert it to an electric to drive 100 miles a day, 5 days a week, they pay $3.10 a gallon of diesel. Not in California, just kidding. And we know that they will be paying $16,000 for fuel per year to operate that truck. We also know that the electric version of that truck will operate on about $8,000 of electric fuel. So what this tells me is if I convert the truck over, I will save about $8,000 of fuel per year. It puts it in the header up top. If you were on the tool and you scrolled down, it would tell you what your low carbon fuel standard credits are going to be. I don't have time to explain that, but in California, the California Air Resources Board has LCFS credits. If you own the charging stations, you own the credits. You tell CARB how much electricity that you've been using, they will send you these credits and you can monetize them. But this tool will actually calculate for you all of those numbers of what you're going to look at over the next 10 years on an annual basis of savings. So really important. There's other tabs in here, electricity, vehicles, chargers, or emissions. Maybe it's real important for you to understand how many tons of greenhouse gas emissions you're going to reduce if you can do this conversion. So really great tool to play around with. Okay, that's enough of the tool. Also, when you get this slide deck, you're going to see that we have a whole bunch of links to some really valuable resources that most of the customers are asking for. So that's kind of a really good thing there. Okay, with that, that's the end of my final presentation. What I want to do now is, if I can do this talk and still do it at the same time, I would like to go into the, let's get into the live Q&A session. It's something that we really want to get into answering some of your guys' questions. So with that, I'm going to open up this, our document here, and just start seeing what kind of questions you guys have for us. There was a couple that I thought were really good right off the bat. Let's see. We've got, now that's for PG&E. I want to get one for Joel here. Let's see. Joel, there's a question about when will fleet relevant vehicle availability increase to the point where fleets can count on or plan on EV adoption, actual availability for quantities needed in electrifying fleets. I'm sure what this is going to, Joel, is if you go to the dealer now, it's really hard to get that Ford F-150. If I want to buy 3 of them, it's hard to do. So what can you tell me about what Ford's doing to increase this or make these more available?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, I spend a lot of time in Dearborn, especially at the Rouge, where the Lightning's manufactured. We've been working on this for years, coming out of COVID. Dealing with all the supply chain disruption, microchip shortages. There's an amazing body of work that the supply chain team at Ford puts in to not only avoid that going forward, if possible, but to make sure that we've got materials sourced for production. So we've actually sourced all the components, right? All the materials, batteries, you name it, to hit a global production run rate of 600,000 BEVs by the end of this year, less than 6 months. And we'll be at a global production run rate of 600,000 BEVs globally. And then by the end of 2026, we'll be at 2 million BEVs globally. And we're 70% of the way complete sourcing all that material, right? 3+ years out. That's how far ahead the procurement team is in terms of making sure we have the supply to meet the demands of customers. So we're right there, right? We're starting to get into the handle of the hockey stick as we're seeing additional makes and models from all vehicle manufacturers, and then additional capacity from Ford to meet the needs of our customers.
Good to hear. I do appreciate hearing that, because I hear it all the time when we're trying to help customers and do their planning, and they're going, well, I can't plan with PG&E if I don't know what's going to be available. So that is great to hear. Let's see, I'll do one for PG&E. Let's see, what's current lead time for service upgrades? I just covered that during the slide. You should plan on, again, Joel said it, he said, and we tell them all, say this all the time, so it's great to hear some of the vehicle manufacturers such as Ford telling customers is, get with your utility as quick as possible, get with them and let them go. So yeah, as I said, we're talking 9 to 13 months between when you submit your application, between when you have energized charging stations. That's the time to really go for. And it says, does PG&E have a subsidy program to support fleet? Yes, I covered that too. EV fleet incentives and rebates. We're going to share this out to you as far as that goes. And if you're curious, do I qualify? What do I qualify for? I'll share with you in some of those links a way you can submit an interest form, or you can get a hold of me at pg.com, and we're more than happy to line you up with a call and talk about your project specifically, and then line up, what do you qualify? Do you qualify for the BTM incentives and charger rebates, or vice versa, or what else it might be that you might qualify for? So that's good stuff. And then let's see, another one here for Joel. It says, Joel, we were talking about how Ford just announced this, but when, if ever, does Ford expect fleet relevant EV pricing to decrease as sales volume increases? You probably can share an announcement that Ford did yesterday. I think you already said that one, right?
Yeah, we were sitting on that one. That was some good news. You can't wait to get the good news out. So across the Lightning lineup, it's approximately a $10,000 reduction in MSRP, depending on the trim. And again, that's the result of the procurement team out there bringing those costs down with suppliers through our production scale. So obviously we want to pass that savings onto our customers. And
Awesome.
When fleet customers are starting to talk big volumes, that $10,000 adds up really quickly at scale.
Definitely. And here's one, just because I think this is another good one for you. It says 40 Transit 125 miles and Lightning 230. They must be talking about the range of the vehicles. It says, when can we expect to see range improvements?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Like I said, we put a lot of time and effort into making sure we're developing the right product in the first place with the E-Transit. So we launched with 126 mile nominal range. In Europe, we do have additional vehicle models available. There has been a release of a new E-Transit in Europe for the European market with a higher range capability. So stay tuned for that vehicle in market in the US. But the reality is the range of the electric vehicle is really a function of charging. And so if you've got time, which I think most companies do, to give your employees breaks, the bio breaks we're all used to, you can charge in the middle of the day, you can DC charge, obviously with overnight charging, there's a lot of opportunity to get opportunity charging, right? Quite literally, to extend the range of the vehicle. So range is just a function of charging. With the Lightning, there are 2 battery configurations. So I drive an extended range vehicle because I do a lot of towing. And so the extended range, it actually increases the rating from 230 miles up to about 320 miles.
Ah, yeah. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. Let's see, our next one, it says, what are PG&E's plans increasing power during nighttime hours to meet charging demands? So I'm not sure who asked that one, but actually your nighttime hours were set. So understand that in California and most utilities, you'll have what's called a charging curve. And if you look at the independent system operator in California, Cal ISO, they actually list this, and you could see when the curve is most demand on the grid in California, and then as it drops off. For the most part, it's from 4 till 9 is that peak time when we lose solar, but we still have a lot of people who are using power. So it's 4 till 9 is the peak. It's not really during the evenings when the fleet chargers, the fleets are charging, when your drivers are all coming back, they plug in, they go home, and then hopefully you're on time. Your chargers are on timers where they don't start charging at 4. That's the expensive time. They'll wait till about 9 o'clock, then they start charging, and then the demand on the grid is relatively low, and that's when we have plenty of charging to go around. I don't think with this question, this one is, when you're going to increase for power supplies for nighttime charging. That's not really the issue in California. California is the daytime charging. That's what is really kind of critical for us whenever we're looking at a customer who says, hey, I want to do all of this charging. I want to hook up all of these charging stations. Now, for most part, most of the customers in our programs, we have enough capacity. We can hook them up, we can get their chargers up and running and match what they're going to do every year as they're adding up. There are some times, and you'll see a lot of these in the media, where somebody will say, oh, I saw that PG&E couldn't supply this. That's usually a localized issue on that street with that, and we'll work with the customer to get that stuff bumped up. I know we're running out of time, and so I was really wanting to get one more in. How do you leverage financial incentives to lower upfront costs? I think we actually covered that one. Jolie did a great job talking about the financing services that Ford offers and the fact that they will help you identify the available tax incentives and grants and that sort of thing, which is fantastic to hear somebody who's building the vehicles actually help you identify which grants are available. And then I had that tool on our fleet savings calculator that will identify what grants are available. Use those, as Joel said, to really help you identify and buy down the cost of your vehicles, the cost of your infrastructure while it's there. I know we're right now at 1 o'clock, and unfortunately I'm going to have to wrap this up, which is unfortunate because we actually had some really great questions from you folks, and really do appreciate that. So that's all of our time that we have. So really appreciate you joining us. You will be receiving a follow-up email within 1 week to include the recording of this email, along with the presentations that both Joel and I provided for you guys today. As a reminder, please fill out the quick 30-second survey that will pop up as you leave the webinar. We really want to hear from you. We want to make these as good as possible. Before I say goodbye to all of you, I really want to thank Joel again for coming on and really sharing what Ford Pro is doing, not only to provide the vehicles, but just all the other assistance that you guys are doing, because that's really key that most customers are running into problems with. So Joel, thank you again so much for coming on.
No problem. Appreciate it. Yeah. Take care, y'all.
Of course. So with that, we thank you all again for joining us. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe and take care.